Hey, what's going on everyone? This is Nick. Today I'm going to be talking about the spotlight effect and why it's important to release your music. Writing and creating music for me has been such an important part of my life, and it's something that I've been doing for years. Now, common things that come up are like, oh, I don't know enough music theory, or I don't know enough chords, or I don't know enough scales, or I don't know enough songs to be able to write a song. That's bullshit. If you're waiting until you have enough knowledge to write a song or to come up with a song, or you're like waiting until you have like a steady base, then chances are you might not ever write a song. Because we're always going to be learning, and there's always new stuff to learn, and there's this like kind of misconception that like, oh, once you go to music school, you'll know music theory in its entirety and you'll know everything about it. But that's also bull. For one, the music theory curriculum that's taught at most universities is really actually the harmonic style of 18th century European musicians, rather than the theory of music itself, like talking about the overtones and talking about rhythm and talking about how the waveforms line up and all this stuff. So in this realm that we consider music theory, there's always going to be more stuff to learn, and there's always going to be new processes. You know, even I'm about to finish my master's degree in jazz studies, and after I think like 6, 7, or 8 years in music academia, I'm still learning stuff, and I will still continue to learn. People get doctorate and PhDs in music, so it's a never-ending journey. Another aspect of it is that writing and creating music is a form of self-expression. You know, music has gotten me through a lot of really tough times in my life, and part of it was literally like, I'm really upset at something, I'm gonna go sit down to the guitar and write this stuff down. I'm gonna try to transmit my emotions into the instrument, and those have been my best songs, honestly. And it's also partially reframing the story. So like, for example, there's one song that I wrote that I had like this really big fight, and I wrote that song and I was really like upset, like on the brink of tears, like just kind of writing down my thoughts, like kind of like what I was feeling, to just like improvising on the guitar, trying to get that message through. Years later, that ended up being my song called Clarity. Which I've released and performed many times, and every time I play it now, I do think of that story, but it's kind of like a reframing of the narrative around the story. It's no longer, I'm really upset at this, but it was like, I got through this fight, I've healed, and I made it a positive thing. It doesn't always have to be a positive thing, but it's a change in the way I remember that, and it like kind of adds to the memory, and it's like an important thing. Like, writing that song has brought a lot to me. It was on my last EP, Tales of the Broken World, which is available on all the streaming platforms, so go check that out if you want, I guess. And you know, music is really a gift. Music and arts in general are ways to bring people joy in their life. There's a lot of political stuff going on the news every day. There's something like super malicious, and on top of that, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. These are the things that people are exposed to almost constantly. But when you're scrolling through Instagram and you see all these posts of like the world blowing up, and you see one amazing artist and a song they wrote, and it touches you in such a way that it makes you kind of forget about all the bad things. It's like 3 minutes of goodness in the world of like chaos, you know? So to put it kind of cheesily, you're a force of good instead of a force of evil, I guess. That's kind of cringe, but I'll keep that. So my challenge to you is to go right now and go write a song. And after you do that, find me on Instagram at njrousmusic and go send me the recording of the song, and I'll tell you what I think about it. And I'll respond to every single message I get. Leave a comment if you have any questions about those songs, and let me know. I'm here to help. Another thing about it is that it's free and it's available to anyone. Like I said, no matter what music knowledge you have the ability to write a song. One of my teachers, Ben Schwendner, says creativity is a myth. It's really just choosing from the options you have available to you, and that's why George Russell developed the linear chromatic concept, to have like kind of a systemized way of mapping out what elements he had available to him when he was composing. You can easily do the same. You can have like for example, a song like Vision Board or something like that, or you can write down a list of the musical elements you know. Maybe you know like the G chord and the C chord. Write down all the chords you know, and maybe you know like a few notes on the guitar. Even if you don't know the notes on the guitar, just kind of play them because they're free, or even on the piano or whatever instrument you play. Even recording your own music is pretty cheap nowadays. You can get like a MIDI keyboard and you can write your whole song. You can use the free samples on GarageBand, you know. You also need a computer, but I assume if you're on YouTube, you might have a computer, and if you're on YouTube, you probably have like a phone or something, so you can even download GarageBand on your phone and you can create music that way. But anyway, before I get too off topic, I want to talk about the spotlight effect and ways this affects musicians, because it affects musicians almost regularly, and pretty much every musician I know has probably experienced this. So if you do a quick Google search and you look up the spotlight effect, it'll read, "The spotlight effect is a term used by social psychologists to refer to the tendency we have to overestimate how much other people notice about us. In other words, we tend to think that there is a spotlight on us at all times, highlighting all of our mistakes or flaws for all the world to see. This is a big misconception because think about it. If all the eyes are on you and there are multiple people who think the same way, that, oh, all the eyes are on me, doesn't that mean that all the eyes are on ourselves? So we're only seeing ourselves? So that was the very well mind definition. But to put it simply, the spotlight effect is basically just like the idea that, like, if I put out an album, if I put out an EP, if I put out a single, everyone's gonna watch it, everyone's gonna judge me, I'm gonna get so much criticism. All my family and friends are gonna like be super critical and they're gonna talk bad about me or whatever. Or sometimes it could be the opposite, they're gonna talk good about me. And I understand where that comes from, you know, because I'm self-conscious myself, and basically every musician I know is self-conscious, because in order to put out art or music into the world, you have to be kind of objective about it and really hyper-analyze your faults, your mistakes, and all this stuff. But in reality, everyone's kind of worried about their own life. Like I said earlier, the world's kind of falling apart. So not everyone is going to see your album, and if someone talks bad about your album, it's not the worst thing in the world because they gave you a moment and they actually listened to your music. I know this is kind of like on the flip side of what I said earlier, but if you're worried about releasing music, or you're feeling super self-conscious, or you're feeling I'm not good enough, then this is kind of your call to action to do something about it and release the music. It took me a lot of courage to release the 2 EPs I've had, and I still look back at them and I'm like, wow, these are like terribly produced, you know. In fact, last night I went back and tried to remix my first EP, Piece in Pieces, because now I actually kind of know how to mix. And I was like, wow, there's not really much more I could do to this. Like, I did a pretty good job, especially not knowing anything. So I still look back on these things and I'm like, oh man, I wish I was a little better. But at the same time, I don't, because it's reflective of the times. It was reflective of what I was doing. It was a reflective of the situation. It brings back memories. It brings me back to that same room that we recorded. And it brings me back to that room where I was hanging out with my friends, playing music that I really love and having a great time. We are constantly in a state of becoming. Every musician you ever talk to is still learning. They're still working on something new. You know, for example, Wayne Shorter. He's about 86 years old now. I think he's turning 87 this year. I may be wrong. Someone fact check me on that. He's working on an opera with Esperanza Spalding. He can't play saxophone anymore because of health conditions. And instead of just like kind of sitting on his couch reading comic books, he's working on an opera and he's still discovering music and he's still composing. He's been playing music since the 50s. He played with Art Blakey, Miles Davis, Weather Report. He founded Weather Report. But he has his own Blue Note recordings that are like quintessential jazz recordings that are on all the real books. And he's still going. His last record, Emanon, had a jazz quartet and an orchestra, and they're playing free within the context of the orchestra. He's even said at some point he believes that orchestras will start improvising, which to me is like mind-blowing. But he's done all this stuff and he's still going. He's like, I'm gonna write an opera, but he's still working at it and he's still discovering new territory and still discovering new textures. So to me, that's amazing, because think about if Wayne Shorter had imposter syndrome and decided not to do all the things he's done. The world of jazz would be so empty, and his enormous contribution would have been erased. In my opinion, there's no such thing as high art or low art. It's just all arts, you know? This is a humanity thing. This is like, I'm gonna express myself, and you can't express yourself better than someone else. You might have more tools to articulate different ideas. Like, for example, if I wanted like a kind of mystical, spooky feeling, maybe I do a Lydian sharp 9 chord, and someone who doesn't know what a Lydian sharp 9 chord doesn't have that access, they still can express themselves somehow within their music. And we've all had our own unique experiences. We've all been through certain things in life. We all like certain bands. No one likes the same combination of artists that you do. I'm not sure how many people really love Foo Fighters and Shine Maestro and Wayne Shorter and Streetlight Manifesto and Led Zeppelin and, like, for example, Circa Survive. Those are really like kind of broad strokes, and they're really in different spectrums of the music industry, and I'm not sure exactly who likes those bands. There could be a bunch of people out there who relate to me, but the more bands you add, the less likely that there's going to be people who also like those bands. And so your tastes are informed by you as a person, which is deeply personal, deeply unique, and you have something to offer. So my challenge to you all today is to go and write a song. Find me on Instagram, leave a comment, send me an email. I think I have my links down in the description. Send me your song and I'll give you some positive words about it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like and subscribe so I can continue making these videos. If there's some kind of special content you want to see, also leave a comment about that. And I hope this has been helpful. So if it has, I hope to see you next time. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching.